Okay, how are we, people? My name's Tim, and I'm just going to talk a bit today about writing for IELTS and how to approach it. What I'm going to present today is based around the writing task 1, but this can be applied to the writing task 2, to OET, to writing essays for your class. This can be applied to just about any type of writing. So let's dig into it. We're going to use a example from British Council. This is a writing task 1 that I give to a lot of students to practice, and it has a lot of information there. So you have to break down the information first. The first bit is an explanation of the info in the graph. The second bit is the actual question. So the info in the graph shows the number of men and women studying in further education in Britain over 3 different periods, which I'll talk about the graph in a minute. And the question is, summarise the information by selecting and reporting the main features and making comparisons where relevant. So this is the graph with all the information. So that's where we're going to start. And let's look at the information. You should take a minute just to understand the information. This is the number of male participants on this side of the graph, the number of females on this side. This is telling you that this is the number of men and women in further education in the thousands. Now, I've had so many people miss that, and they think that this just represents 200, 400, 600, 800. On this side, you've got the years, 1970, 71, 80, 81, so on. And then you've got the numbers, 200, 400. But this is in thousands, so it's 200,000, 400,000, 600,000, right up to 1 million. 1.2 million. You can see how if someone doesn't look at that and take a minute, they can come from here and they can go across and go, oh, it's 1100. And if you write 1100 in your essay, you've misunderstood the information and the person has a right to take away a mark for that. So just make sure you take a minute in these situations to calm yourself down and look at the graph and understand the information. The last piece is the key down here, which is the black represents full-time education and the grey represents part-time education. So let's look at what the question said now, because that's the next thing you need to understand is what is the actual question. And it says to summarise the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. So select and report the main features. Now, it's not going to tell you what the main features are. You decide what you think the main features are and then make comparisons between these where relevant. So main features could include highest and lowest figures or numbers, biggest or smallest increases in numbers. Comparisons could include between male and female numbers or decades for each individual gender or 1 decade for both genders. But there's so many comparisons you could make or so many main features you could point out. Pick your own. I've picked a few. Now this is where I talk about the actual approach to writing. And I believe that writing an introduction first is the hardest way to approach writing. I know it's the way that everyone gets taught, and if it works for you, keep doing it, all right? That's absolutely fine, keep doing it. But if it's not working for you, if you sit down and you go to write, and you get to the introduction and you go, I just don't know how to write an introduction, I just suck at it, then try something else. Try this. This isn't asking you to write your introduction first. This is saying, how are you going to answer this question? All right? And I call this planning an essay. A lot of people call this planning an essay. And it's because when someone says to you, oh, you know what? Tell me about all the information on this graph. Then you go, well, the female numbers are the highest. Like, you don't even have to think about that. Your eyes just look at all these and go, that's the highest one. Female's got the highest numbers. Then they look down here and they go, oh, females also got the lowest numbers. What do they relate to? Oh, full-time and part-time education. So the females have got the highest part-time education and the lowest full-time education. There's 2 main features like that. All right, so I'm just saying your brain actually starts to make arguments first. And when I ask this question to students who I'm trying to show, they give me all their arguments and comparisons first. And I say to them, well, why didn't you tell me in this speech, I will show to you all my arguments and comparisons, and then tell me your comparisons? And they said, well, because that's just not how we speak. And I go, exactly. So why are you trying to write in a fashion that is completely against the way that you speak and the way that you think? So try this and see if it works. So it's planning an essay. You think of your arguments first, which will make up your body, not your introduction. So you write your arguments first. And then we'll use this to build part of our introduction and all of your body and part of your conclusion, which will then give you this beautiful cohesion, which you'll see in a minute. So I'll just explain cohesion and coherence. Coherence is when a short form, like a sentence, makes sense. So when you say one sentence to me, like, where is the bus? Well, the bus is over there. So you're coherent. You can make sense in a short form. Cohesion is putting together a whole bunch of sentences, like, where is the bus? And after I get off the bus at Dandenong, where do I go to actually get to the shopping mall? So 2 or 3 sentences that have all related to each other. I didn't say, where is the bus? Oh, and when I get off the bus, you know that my house is over in Frankston, and isn't the beach lovely when you go up north? Sure, all the sentences made sense in a short form, but they didn't stick together. You were talking about Frankston, then you were talking about north, you were talking about buses, then beaches. It's not cohesive. It's coherent in the short form. All your sentences made sense, but they weren't cohesive. They didn't stick together in a longer form. I hope that makes sense. And it's what IELTS markers are looking for. They are looking for cohesion and coherence. They're looking for your short form to make sense, and then they are looking for the long form. How does it fit all together? So these are my list of arguments, and I'm going to keep them up here. We're going to come back to them so you can see how I turn them into a short form for our introduction. You can read those. I don't need to read those out. You can come back to them. I'm going to put this up on Facebook and on the International Academic Hub, so International Academic Support on StudentWeb, so you can look at it there. Now let's look at your intro. It has 2 functions. The first function, rephrase the question. And this means rewrite the question in your own way that you understand. All right? So if I say to you, what did you do on your weekend? A lot of people, their first response is, on the weekend, I. So by saying that, you've shown me that you understand that we're talking about your weekend. Some people will just jump ahead and say, oh, I went for a swim, I went shopping, whatever. All right, but some people will say, on the weekend, I, to show that they've understood your question. And that's what we want to do here. So I've used part of the question as my answer. So you can still use part of the question as your rewriting of the question. And it's actually very difficult to avoid doing that. You just can't blankly rewrite the question because that does not show understanding. And the second part of the intro is to introduce your body. So make a list of arguments in shorthand. And I'm about to show you that. So the question states, summarise the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. So if we're rephrasing, it might look something like this. In this essay, I will provide a summary of the main features of the statistics and graphical information provided, and also compare these statistics where necessary or where relevant. So I've used some of the main words from the question to build my rephrasing, which is absolutely fine. It shows that I have understood the question. We then, in the second part, make a list of our arguments like this. So I've said these highlights and comparisons will include the largest numbers of people studying, right? Largest numbers of people studying. Here's my list of arguments. The largest number of people studying over this period. So I shortened it to It will include the largest numbers of people studying. The second argument, comma, the greatest increase in numbers. The greatest increase in numbers. So I just use the language that talks about the comparison. And an overview of how each gender's numbers changed over the given period. Male numbers decreased dramatically, then rose again, whereas females increased, at times suddenly to much larger numbers. So I've used like a shorthand version to make my intro. When you put the two together, this is how it reads. In this essay, I will provide a summary of the main features of the statistics and graphical information provided, and also compare these statistics where necessary. These highlights and comparisons will include the largest numbers of people studying, the greatest increase in numbers, and an overview of how each gender's numbers changed over the given period. This has shown in the first sentence that you understand the question, and the second one tells the person marking exactly what they're going to read. So, like, it just makes sense to me to do it this way. Now, you might think, well, where do I start my body? Well, just start with the first argument. What was the first argument that you wrote down? It was the largest number of people studying. So, firstly, the largest number of people that studied in any of the periods surveyed was women studying in 1990 to 91. This is what I wrote here in shorthand. These numbers, I go on a bit further in detail. These numbers peaked at 1.1 million, which you can see on the graph. They peaked at 1.1 million. This is slightly higher than the male peak, which was 1 million. So I make a comparison. You go on and you do the same thing for your second argument and your third argument. For your second argument and your third argument. All right? Now, you practice this. Like, that's what I'm here for, is for you to come practice this. But you watch this first and practice it a bit in your own time. It'll come pretty naturally. Now the conclusion, which is probably the hardest bit, because people always get confused about what a conclusion is, but never, ever, 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 ever start your conclusion with "in conclusion." Never. If I see that, I take a mark, just because it annoys me more than anything. But I would take a mark, because I know it's a conclusion. I know it's what a conclusion, but do three things, all right, in your conclusion. If you do this, you'll never write "in conclusion." First thing, tell us what you've done in the report. So in this essay, I've made comparisons and highlighted parts of the statistics that I found important, that I thought were the main features. Whatever, you can extend on that. I'm just trying to keep it brief. You don't have to. 2, tell us again, what were your main arguments to show that the number of females studying part-time represented the peak number of any gender, which is what I had in my arguments here, largest number. So you're just repeating your arguments again. Also, the largest increase in numbers was in females studying part-time. So I've only talked about 2 of my main arguments. You don't have to talk about all of them. You can if you want. And then I have done the most important thing in a conclusion. Make at least one conclusion, actual, factual assumption from the evidence. You've made all the arguments, so this is where you are allowed to say, I believe this because of what the research has shown me. So I have written, overall, the statistics show that the number of females studying in either part-time or full-time generally increased. It shows you that in the graph. So you're not saying anything from personal bias. You're saying the statistics show that. I'm not saying it. The statistics do, which is fine. Absolutely fine. While male numbers fluctuated across the time period. If you put these 3 together, this is how it reads. In this essay, I have made comparisons and highlighted parts of the statistics to show that the number of females studying part-time represented the peak number of any gender. Also, the largest increase in numbers was in females studying part-time. So I extended on it a little bit. Overall, the statistics show that the number of females studying in either part-time or full-time generally increased while male numbers fluctuated across the time period. Conclusion done. Absolutely done. And not only that, if you look at that and then you come back in this slide to my introduction, just here, you put that up against that, so you put the conclusion with the intro, you will see what looks like introducing your answer and saying what your answer is, and they will match beautifully and they will be cohesive. All right, so let's look at the steps again. There's 6 of them. All right, break down the information given, look at the graphs, look at the information, look at the statistics, and make sure you understand them, or do your best to understand them. What is the question asking you to do? Summarize, agree, disagree, discuss, report, whatever it's asking you to do. Number 3, work out your 3 to 5 arguments. Once you know all the information and you know the question, in your head answer it. It's because of this, this, and this, Tim. It's because of this, this, and this. So you put those down in shorthand on your question form. You put them down somewhere, point some arrows to the graph, do something to indicate what you're going to do. Begin your introduction by rephrasing the question and listing your arguments from point 3. Complete your arguments one by one in order. Keep some order, keep some cohesion. And then conclude. Tell us what you did. Restate your arguments and make at least one conclusion. You can make more than one conclusion. You are more than welcome to, but make at least one. And if you do this, happy times. So this will be available for you to review and look at and test out with a whole heap of other exercises. If you look at IELTS.org or British Council, they have a whole heap of extra things. I've put up some stuff on the International Academic Hub for people to test their skills out on, and I'll continue to add more and more things so that you can practice and I can give feedback. But I just wanted to address this on a broad audience so that you can look back at this video again and again and again and look back at the presentation again and again and again, and you can go, oh, you know what, like, actually that makes much more sense to me. Or, you know what, Tim's an idiot, like he doesn't know how to write anything. I don't care if you disagree with me. If you've got your own way of doing it, do it, practice it, show me, I'll give you feedback, and I'll keep pushing you to get better. Because you can always go from a 6 to a 6.5 to a 7 to a 7.5 to an 8 with practice and consistent practice and consistent feedback from someone who knows what they're talking about. So I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope it helps. Like I said, I'll make the video available on the Academic Support Hub and on Facebook and on YouTube. And I will also make the presentation that was involved in this video available for you to look at, because I'm not about hiding these things or making it difficult for you to access. It's a Google Slides presentation, so as long as you've got access to the internet, you'll be able to look at this and download it and keep it, use it on your phone, use it on anything, all right? So give me some feedback. If you liked this, fantastic. Tell me that you liked it. If you hated it and it bored you to tears, tell me it bored you to tears, and I'll try and do something better. But you got to tell me these things. Let me know on Facebook. There's a survey that I put up for people to fill out. Fill it out. Tell me what you like, what you don't like. If you've got any questions, email me at timothy.scholl@boxhill.edu.au. or come and see me at my office in the back of the library at the Elga campus. I'll see you later, and thanks for watching.